Hi everyone! Today I'm going to introduce to you a new series. It's called Brilliant Games. This is the first video of that series. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So this was a game played between Alexander McDonnell, which was he lived from late 1700s to early 1800s, and Louis Charles Mahe de la Bourdonnais. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Please correct me if I said that wrong. He lived around the same time as Alexander McDonnell. Labourdonnais was the leading French player, considered to be one of the best players of all time during that time period. Alexander McDonnell was the best English player. So now that you know about the players, let's get into the game. So Alexander is white and Labourdonnais is black. Alexander starts with e4, c5, the Sicilian Defence. Knight f3, knight c6, d4. So this is the Sicilian. It's one of the best openings for black. So c takes d4, knight takes d4. This is known as the open Sicilian. Now e5. This is known as the Löwenthal variation. Black strikes in the center with a pawn, and attacks the knight. But this has its drawbacks. For one, it weakens control of the d5 square, and this pawn could become a weakness in the future because there's no pawns next to it to support its advance. But now Alexander plays a weird move. He plays knight takes c6. This is a pretty questionable move. For one, after b takes c6, look at this square. It's now defended by the black's pawn. So d5 is no longer a weakness for black. And also, this exchange enabled black to quickly strike with d5, in fact, to build a great center. But knight takes c6 is a very questionable move. Nowadays, people play knight b5. Let's go back to knight takes c6. After black plays d5, black will get a strong center and white has no compensation. So let's continue. Bishop c4. Developing the light squared bishop onto an active diagonal, and also controlling the d5 square. Knight f6, attacking the e-pawn, and bishop to g5, pinning the knight. Bishop e7, unpinning. And now queen e2. This move is a bit strange. It defends the e-pawn, but it also exposes the queen to the a6 f1 diagonal. What I mean by that is this diagonal, because this is the a6 square and this is the f1 square. And this move also encourages black to attack the center. The fact that the queen pressures the e5 pawn is only relevant once white has castled at least. d5. This is an excellent move, taking the initiative and attacking the center. Bishop takes f6. E takes d5, c takes d5. Let's see. So e d5, c d5. This is also possible. White can't take the e-pawn because their bishop is under attack. But in the game, Alexander chooses bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and bishop b3. Castles, a5. This is very aggressive. Black threatens both a4, trapping the light squared bishop, and also bishop a6, a skewer. Once the queen moves, the rook will be lost. E takes d5. Now bishop a6 doesn't work because of c4 interposing. a4 doesn't work because now the bishop can go to c4. E d5. Now renewing the threat of bishop a6 and also a4. And rook d1. This move just barely parries both threats. Bishop a6 doesn't work now because there's no rook there. And a4 is met with rook takes d5. It's a good move because it attacks the queen. If you take my bishop, I take your queen. That's a very nice move. Okay, so now d4, moving the pawn out of the way. But now c4. McDonnell decides to play actively with this move c4, hoping that his own c-pawn will prove as strong as black's passed d-pawn. However, this hope is unrealistic. Black's d-pawn is already far advanced and defended by a pawn and several other pieces. White's c-pawn is far away from promotion and isn't defended by than another pawn. Nowadays, if a grandmaster had this position, they would probably employ what was first coined by Nimzowitsch: restrain, blockade, and destroy. First, you restrain the pawns so they can't move, so they find it difficult to move forward. Next, you blockade the pawns so they completely can't move forward, and then you destroy the pawns. In this case, you can restrain and blockade it, but destroying it is too much. So c4, not too accurate. Queen b6, moving the queen out and connecting the rooks. Bishop c2. Here's a question for you guys. What happens if you play queen takes b2? Why is this really bad for black? I'll give you a second to pause the video, see if you can find it. The answer is bishop takes h7, check. You might ask, what, that just loses a piece? Just lose the bishop. Well, no, because now there's a queen on the other side. And you can take a free queen, and white is completely winning. So queen takes b2 is a terrible blunder. Bishop b7, developing the bishop and connecting the rooks. Knight d2, and rook a e8. This is also another good move. Labourdonnais correctly perceives that this rook needs to stay behind the f-pawn, because in the future the f-pawn will march forward with these other pawns. So this is known as foreseeing. This is known as prophylactic play. Okay, knight e4, activating the knight and blocking the e-pawn. You might ask, well, can black take the move before? Can black take on b2 now? Because now if you play bishop takes h7, there's nothing here. The knight is in the way. So, well, this doesn't work because of queen d3. Excellent. So you're friending checkmate, and also you got the queen out of the way. So e4 is forced. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes. Checkmate is again threatened. So g6, blocking. And now this position is thus equal. For the cost of a pawn, white has completely destroyed your center, and there's not much play left in the position. Let's go back to the main line. Rook a e8, knight e4, and bishop d8. Now Labourdonnais threatens f5 to get the pawn rolling, and white must act quickly. c5 by McDonnell. He pushes his passed pawn to get it one square closer to promotion. It also threatens the queen. Queen c6, and now f3. Queen c6 has a hidden idea. If you move the knight anywhere, that's checkmate. That is checkmate on g2. I'm sure some of you would have blundered that. Anyways, f3, and this threatens knight d6 because now there's no checkmate on g2, and this knight on d6 is super powerful. So Labourdonnais plays bishop e7, guarding the d6 square. Rook a c1, defending the c-pawn in the future. And now f5. Labourdonnais immediately carries out his plan. This looks very scary if you're playing white. Queen c4 check. You can't take the knight now because it's check. And king h1, the only good move. Let's look at the other possibilities. If you play queen d5, that is met with queen b5. Now friending the pin, and white has suddenly equalized. Let's look at rook f7. Rook f7 loses on the spot to bishop a4. It's a skewer. After queen c8, defending the rook, so you only lose an exchange and not the entire rook. Take on e8, and now you play knight d6. And look at what's happened. This pawn is suddenly 2 squares away from promotion. These pawns have been now frozen, and you're just down an exchange. So white is completely winning. So this is definitely not what you want. In the game, after king h1, Alexander McDonnell must have thought, ha, what an idiot. I can just play bishop a4. And look, I skewer your rook. Well, Labourdonnais probably saw this, and he plays queen h6, the only good move yet again. This just shows how strong of a player Labourdonnais was. Bishop takes e8 and f takes e4. Not taking the bishop back, but taking the central knight. And now c6. Not escaping the bishop, but pushing the pawn another square towards promotion. If you take this, then I take this bishop, and now suddenly you're completely lost. Queen c8 comes, and you can resign in this position. Okay, e takes f3. This is a mistake. The correct move order is queen e3 check first, king h1, and takes. This is a lot better. If you take the bishop here and be like, hi, I'm up a bit piece and I'm about to queen, it's actually checkmate in 5 moves. fg2 takes, rook f2, king g1, rook takes b2 check, discover check, king h1, queen f3 check, king g1, queen g2 mate. I totally saw this continuation, don't worry. Okay, so after queen e3 check, this position is a lot better for black. But he plays e takes f3, and this gives white a little bit of hope. Rook c2, defending the second rank. But now, queen e3 check, another inaccuracy. It was better for you to play bishop a6 first, deflecting the queen. If the queen were to take, then you can play e4, this move, and suddenly, uh-oh, who's stopping these pawns? Wait a second, I'm completely lost. So bishop a6 is a very strong move, but he unfortunately misses it. Plays queen e3 check, king h1. And king h1 is a counter blunder. It would be a lot better to play rook f2 here, and black has nothing. It's just a draw now. But he plays king h1, and now bishop c8, getting the bishop out of danger. Bishop d7, and instead of taking, he pushes the f-pawn 1 square. Now you're friending queen e1 check, you're friending d3, and queen e1. Queen e1 check, let's just play it out. Let's say he takes your bishop. Queen e1 check, queen f1, and queen takes d1. Absolutely amazing. Sacrificing the queen, because if you take, you get b-end. Rook mate! Promotion to a rook, and then checkmate with the rook. Amazing. Okay, so you have to block the f-pawn. And Alexander chooses the right piece to block with the rook. If you play the queen to f1, then now you have the absolute disgusting move, bishop a6. Again, you'll find this theme occurring very common in this game. Bishop to a6, deflecting the queen. And this was only enabled because all the way back here, in this position, he exposed his queen to this diagonal of the move queen e2. Okay, let's go all the way back here. Bishop a6. So he has to be very accurate to hold here. Rook f1, blocking the pawn, and d3. Now the pawns really start rolling. This pawn is too slow. These pawns attack down the board with tempo as well. Rook c3, pinning the pawn, and bishop takes d7. Critical move, and takes back. e4, solidifying his pawn chain. And now black is just completely winning. Queen c8. I'm sure some of you would take and then get rook mated. Just don't do that. So Labourdonnais plays bishop d8, interposing. So now the queen is not attacking the rook. Queen c4 and queen e1. If you take, again, you get rook mated. So you can take, but also he's friending to attack to take your rook. So you have to come back with your rook. This is called X-ray defense. The rooks defend each other through the queen. d2, pushing the pawn again. And queen c5. If you get greedy and be like, ha, what an idiot, promotion to a rook, Now I'm gonna laser beam you. Well, queen takes f8. Game over. You gotta be careful. White is very resourceful here. But anyways, rook g8. No more tricks. The king is well defended. And rook d2. Maintaining the x-ray defense. e3. Pawn pushes one more square. Queen c3. And now the kiss of death. Queen takes d1. Rook takes d1. And this final position is absolutely magical. e2. Absolutely insane. This queen and this rook can do nothing against these three connected passed pawns, one square away from promotion. Have you ever seen something like this? Of course not. This is absolutely insane. This is why this is one of my favorite chess games ever. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.